So I needed to make this video. Okay, so I just scheduled a test over at one of the community colleges here in Rhode Island to take the GED math test. Now I haven't done any of the GED since I've been here studying at all, and I figured why not? Go ahead and take this test so that I feel more comfortable being sort of taking this academic test. Plus, it gives me a chance to be able to kind of to see how well I remember and where I am academically when it comes to mathematics, with just being given a test to see where I am mentally. So it was only $30, which is cheaper here in Rhode Island for some reason. So it was $30, and I'm going to be taking it. It's an hour and 20 minutes, so it's less than the language arts test. The language arts is an hour and 90 minutes, I think it was, or an hour and so it's like 40 to 50 minutes less time than it is on the language arts test. I took right off the bat. I took a practice test of the mathematics of GED, and when I took the practice, it's only half, or maybe even less, but it's half of the actual test, and I failed it by just like 2 or 3 questions, and I didn't do any prior studying. That was just a practice test, though. The actual test is going to probably have like 60 to 80 probably questions at least, and so I have to get a number of those. But like I said, there's different understanding of mathematics to the way that I kind of see it. I excelled in math faster when I was a kid, and I noticed when I was around people. What does that say? It just whether where you want to put your attention there or not. So it's over at the community college. It's about an hour. It's about a mile and a half from here. And I thought it was just really weird because I thought to myself, I was just taking some practice tests just a second ago, and even though I can come up with the same answer, or I can make a really good estimate of what the answer will be and get it right, it isn't the actual structural way that you're supposed to learn the mathematics that you would learn in any method to be in a class to give you that answer. Because the reason you're taking that mathematics practice, for an example in math, is that you can apply that to whatever situation that you're in. So like if I wanted to calculate, it's 1 mile from here to downtown, and it takes me 50 minutes to 60 minutes walking, and how many footsteps does it take for me to get there if I walk 5 steps every 3 seconds, right? And so you could do all these types of math and structures, and so when you learn the mathematical structure that they teach you in class or online by a teacher, the structural way to learn, you learn how to apply them. I'd be able to calculate x equals how many feet toward, plus, 1 hour, or 50 minutes. And so then that way you can actually learn and apply that to your life. But the way that I saw it is, like for an example, I was looking at a question that said there was 45 inches of a height of a tree, and the tree trunk diameter is 22 inches, right? So I have, and it says, how many square, and they need to put a wrapping around the entire trunk of the tree, right? And there's a picture of the tree, and it shows the entire trunk of the tree before it gets to the leaves, and it has this wrapping around it for winter. So the question is, is how many square feet of wrapping do you need in order to cover the entire tree trunk? Well, we know it's 22 inches across. We We know it's 45 inches above. So 4 times 12 is 48. You got 12, 24, 36, and 48. But it's 3 inches less shy of 4 feet. But I'm going to make an estimate, right? Because remember, you get 4 questions. You get 4 questions for a mathematical. And usually one of the questions will always be like completely off ball. Most of the time you're able to detect those types of things. So out of those 4 questions, I know that 3 of them, I know 3 of them are more likely to be it, but I know one of them is pretty wrong, but could be, but it's pretty, visible at times. So at this question, it gives me 22 feet, 44 feet, 236 feet. It says how many square feet, and it shows a picture. Well, I know 4 feet is 45 inches. Now, if you were to get a mathematic understanding to it, and you say, okay, I need the 45 here, which is y, plus 45 inches. Well, I already know right off the bat it's 45 inches. 4 feet is 48 inches. But it's best just to estimate that. Now, the way that I was able to figure this answer out I actually answered 44, but it was 22 feet. And the way that I looked at it is I visualized a trunk, and how many square feet of wrapping what's 1 square foot? What's 1 square foot? Well, you got 12 inches going this way and 12 inches going that way. So it would be something like that, right? Be something like a square foot, right? That's like 1 square foot, right? So I would count mentally a picture of 1, 2, 3, 4. So imagine 22 inches diameter, right? Which is across from a trunk. So if you were to cut a tree off, what's the table size on that? And the diameter is 22 inches. So you get a clothing tape, you go 22 inches, right? So the way that I saw that is, if it's stating 4 feet, imagine something like this camera is pretty close to maybe, that's only 3 feet, but say 4 feet. So I would say I'm 5 foot, right? So I'm 5'11". So 5, take away 11 inches, and I'm 5 foot, right? And you're estimating, right? So if I were to visualize a 4-foot tree that's 45 inches, the trunk, and the 22 inches, visualize how many squares do you think 22 inches? So 22 inches, like 22 inches in a clothing measuring tape where they have, is probably like 12 inches is this, 22 inches is probably that. So around, so it's probably like this round, right? Like about that round, right? So if it's about that round, how many square wrappings? So I go 1, 2, 3. So that's 3. So I would probably think it would probably go 3 times before it completes. Then if it's 4 feet, so you go 1, you go 3, 6, 9, 12. So it'd be 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18. Right? But remember, it's 22 inches. This is just estimating. And so I'm able to figure out, well, I know it's not the 236. I know it's not the other numbers because they're way too high. Both of them are too high. And 44 feet is actually off. And I thought it was 22 at first, but I thought I just kind of was in a rush and I wanted an answer. But if I took my time, which I was still calculating it pretty fast, I thought, makes sense. You could probably fit 22 squares. 44 seems like a pretty big number if you were to put. So you could probably put 22 squares 45 inches up. That sounds about right, an estimate. So if the answer, and it gives me 4 answers, and it says 22, 44, 36, 138, or whatever it is, the other answer, 22 sounds right. Bam. And that's the answer, right? So the answer's right. And I thought, and I thought about it, because I answered just real quickly, and just an estimate. I mean, not even brainstorming very well. So, but when I thought about it, at 22 inches, I thought, well, yeah, I know that's right, and it seems like a fairly easy answer, which makes sense. But the reason that you learn that mathematics is that you can apply that understanding of math so that you can apply it and you understand the calculations and the reading of that. But the way that I got that answer was completely different. And I still was able to rough estimate that amount. And the reason I was is simply because I measured a square in my mind and I visualized pictures of the visions of it going around a tree. And I made the answer. Did I get the answer correct? Yeah. Did I answer the answer? Did I answer the question right? Yes. Do I get credit for it? Yes, if it's answered correctly. But do I know how to do that math? No. So it's kind of weird, and I thought to myself, I remember being in class in Dallas, Texas. And in Dallas, Texas, I recall I was only able to go for 2 or 3 classes. And it was at the library before I needed to leave or whatever. I needed to leave and the classes were up or some shit. So what happens is we were going through the math process and I was explaining to the teacher and I said, well, you can come up with that same answer. You just, wrote all the numbers down and diagonal, vertical, and it would just take a very long time. Or you could write a horizontal, do a bunch of multiplications, and you would eventually get that answer. But the structure, the way they teach you this certain algebra or fraction or equation or whatever it may be, is that you learn the structure practicing and how to solve that using, this is how you solve addition. 3 plus 3, 6. 4 plus 3 is 7. You learn that these numbers add, but that's a structure on how you learn that math. And this is my understanding. I don't know. I'm not a genius, okay? I don't understand it. But understanding that you apply that math because you learn the structural math, because then you can apply it, and you really do know how to read. Even if you don't apply it to your daily math, you can get any equation from any math that's given to you, even if there isn't a picture, and then you'd be able to calculate it and get it that way. So even if there wasn't a picture for me, I just know that that's the height and difference. And I know that's the diameter, and that's 45 inches, but it's 3 inches off 4 feet. But I can estimate it that I won't be able to, if I knew the mathematics and there wasn't a multiple choice question, I would get the answer wrong. That's because I wouldn't know how to do the structural math. But since it gives me multiple choice questions, I would be able to figure that out, because it gives me some choices and I can narrow it down to which one's most likely. Obviously 1 is usually oddball, 3 is a choice. If you could narrow it down specific in this specific question. So anyway, this is just one simple thing that I thought I would share. That I don't know how to do the math, but I visualize, this going to, for the tree trunk for the winter, for the snowing winter. But anyway, I thought I would share that because I was studying, just answering these questions. So I'm going to take the math test tomorrow. I hope I can pass. Tomorrow's my brother's birthday, October 11th, who gave me the bone marrow transplant. And I said, I know that I probably can't pass it. In fact, I'm probably going to bomb the fucking test. But it's just so that I feel comfortable. It's just so that I feel comfortable with the test that I'm going to take, the length of it, how I, sitting down for that long concentration, looking at these numbers, and what type of question do they ask. Is at least half of these questions are even close to going to be multiple choice, math, addition, subtraction. A lot of these, do they give 2 addition questions and 2 subtraction and a bunch of hard, difficult questions? Or do they spread it out evenly? I don't know. But it gets me kind of a warm-up to feel of the test. So I'm going to be taking this test. I'm going to be taking this test tomorrow, October 11th, from 10 a.m. to, I think it said 12:30 or something like that. It's at a college campus, community college campus. So I don't expect to pass it. I'm really not. I'm just going there just to kind of feel comfortable how well I'm going to be able to study, because honestly, I don't plan to study the test to see how well I can learn academics at this point right now. I just want to pass the test. As long as I pass the test, that's good enough for me. For me to think that I'm going to just do really, really well and get college credit, not going to happen. It didn't happen on any of the tests. As long as I just pass it for now, because I'm not going to be pursuing those types of careers that's going to require super genius, scientific shit. I'm too old now, but I think at this point it'd be great. So I think it'd be great just so that I can kind of, get used to it. No big deal, because even when I do study and I do fail, well, I'm not so disappointed, So I think it'll just kind of help warm things up a little bit. It's $30, so I don't know where I'm going to end up as well. Yeah, I may get lucky. Who knows? I may get lucky and pass the test by one question, or even if I understand that I failed the test by 5 questions, I'll be like, wow, that'd be a huge confidence booster, because then I just can learn a few of the fractions and equations to just greater the chances of that. It also gets me an understanding how well I am academically. I'm 42 years old in January. I'm going bald. I'll lose my hair for sure by 43. I'm shaving my head. I have no choice. I'm not, I'm losing too much of my hair, and that was simply because I used to pluck my hair when I was a kid and chemotherapy. But, gonna enjoy my hair for now, and I got a lot of gray hair on my face now as well. So I decided to trim my beard off as well, but they keep electrocuting me. But I'm gonna go to take this test, see how well I do, just to kind of feel warmed up. Just not just warmed up, but feel comfortable. I can get an idea of what kind of questions they're going to be asking, because I took the practice, like I said, and I got a 141. I needed a 145 to pass. So that means I failed the practice math test by like 2 or 3 questions at most. I think it was a 141. I think I failed the test by 2 questions. No more than 2 questions. No less. No more. Yeah, no more than 2 questions. So, yeah, no more than 2. So there's 2 questions, what is that to likely to pass? So that was a practice test, but it's only half. And so hopefully when I get there, they change also the test every time you take it. So every time you take the test, they're not going to ask the same questions on the same number and same, it's all randomized. And the reason is because every time you take the test, it makes it that much more difficult. It's pretty surprising how difficult that test is. People think, you're stupid, or mathematics and GED. But if you look at the questions of what math is during high school years, especially now, because the GED now in math is much more difficult than way much more difficult than it was 25 years ago when I was it nearly 25 years ago when I was in high school and trying to earn my GED. Way much more difficult. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully, hopefully I'll pass. But anyway, I just figured I'd go take a test, because I don't know how long I'll live here at this residence. I don't know if I have to leave. I don't know what the fuck's going to happen. But at least while I'm here, I'm being some sort of efforts and productive. Because I got all kinds of other situations kind of going on. So figured I'd do that. But anyway, that's not really cheating, because it's still coming up with the same answer, but it's only estimating. It's not structural understanding of that. So anyway, thought I'd make a video on this, and hopefully, who knows, maybe I get lucky. Maybe I get just, really, really lucky and get a test score that passes exactly what I need, a 145, and I pass. And, you know, or even if I fail the test by 5 questions, to me that's still a success, because I'm like, wow, I don't have to study so much. You know, but you know, majority is just to kind of get used to what kind of questions they're asking and kind of get an idea of what kind of